Hey friends, Dora and Magnus here for Gamereactor.
Hi.
You know the deal by now, right?
Yeah,
We're up to chapter 4, talking about Hitman since they just finished their season 1.
Yeah.
And are releasing the whole shebang, both physically and digitally.
Yeah.
So we have an interview series going on, and chapter 4.
So the fourth chapter focuses on Bangkok and this sort of weird hotel where Agent 47 finds himself taking out a couple of targets. I went over to the offices of IO Interactive to talk to Christian Elverdam, which is the studio creative director, about what went into creating this multi-layered level compared to the vastness of Sapienza and Marrakesh, and how they deal with story and character-driven narratives in the game. So enjoy.
Well, I think sort of the Hitman hotel in Thailand there's so many there's some core DNA that where we wanted to go back and explore the hotel. It's again a classic Hitman location, and hotels are kind of great because they have some restrictions. It's pretty clear to read disguises and all that. So I think a lot of it was that aspiration, how do we build a hotel, and almost all the action is within the confines of the hotel. So I think that was a pretty central thought for us, sort of having these two volumes, these two building volumes tied together by the central reception courtyard area. And then I think Thailand became also, I think with Jordan Cross, it's one of the targets where I think we are closer to a very ordinary man. Even though he's a rock star, some of the storytelling around him is a little bit closer to home, if you know what I mean. It's hard to feel like a general in North Africa, sort of what is his day life, or a Russian oligarch leading a spy ring. But a musician that has killed his girlfriend that's sort of closer to what you could call normal. So we also wanted to try to create a more intimate sort of story and a more intimate sort of setting for gradually peeling off the layers and finding out about Jordan Cross. And I think we have some pretty cool moments there as well, where you can get close to your targets that we don't have to the same extent in the other levels. There is a little bit of it with Silvio and the psychiatrist, but I think we explore it further here in Thailand. Well, I think the amount of work that we do in terms of creating stories and sub-stories for each level is pretty significant. I might think sometimes people underestimate just how much script goes into creating these characters. Obviously, we don't know how much people actually witness or get exposed to when they play the game, because you can actually just go in, kill your target and run out again. But we actually try to build multiple small story arcs for our targets, for the players to explore, and also to try as much as possible to create, I would say, rounded characters, at least targets that are obviously often bad people doing very bad things, but there is often also sort of an element of a human being in there, so it's not only a caricature. And I think that's something we try to do with all the targets. Obviously some of them come out better than others, some of them sort of click. But I sort of have a thing, I recall when Sapienza came out, and some people reflected that that's the first time in a long while in Hitman that they felt a little bit guilty killing Silvio, especially if they had, obviously when they had found out that he has a past and there's a reason why he became who he is. And I really like that. I really like that, on the surface, all of them are sort of sinister and bad, but if you actually dig in, they have all their small frailties, small sort of mistakes that make them human as well. I think this touches on one of the fundamental reasons why we actually chose to make this version of Hitman episodic, because as we talked about, there is so much effort put into a Hitman level, from the narratives and all the small stories, the sub-stories, even stories that have nothing to do with the targets. That's thousands of lines of dialogue for one level. And then there's all the level scripting and all that, trying to make a sandbox where players can actually tamper with it and fool around with it, and never feel like we sort of know exactly what you did. It's almost on your terms, right? That means letting go of a lot of control. That means that in one playthrough you can never see but sort of 1/10 of what we actually put in there. And that's obviously a problem, because if people then just play through our game and go like, that's it, they don't really get why Hitman is special, right? Then it's just a game with some objectives and like, what was that about? So when we chose to do an episodic game, was actually one of the main reasons is that we know that if you're going to spend a month in Paris and you enjoy the game, you're actually going to replay it as it's supposed to be done, right? Because if you just went in and shot Novikov and Dahlia and said, oh, I completed Paris, you make a lot of people at IO cry, I would say, because that's not really the point. You didn't complete our game like that. I think once you figured out who Novikov is and all the different ways you can assassinate him and Dahlia, then we can talk about sort of having completed Paris in our minds. So that's where the episodic format allowed us to do that, because you're going to spend time there, and I think even more importantly, you're going to spend time there while the rest of the world or the rest of the Hitman community is actually doing the exact same thing. So sometimes if a game comes out and it's the full package, obviously, then people blaze through it at different speeds. Some are very, very sort of thorough, some just blaze through it and then go back and replay certain elements. And so there's not this feeling of being together in Paris or being together in Italy, which is something we really looked forward to. And I also think it turned out really nice that way, that there's an entire community discovering what all the hidden things we've put into the levels. So I think in that sense, this feeling that we would like more people to see all the different story arcs, all the different opportunities in our levels, in that sense the episodic nature of the game became an answer to that problem, where maybe if you're a sort of a Blood Money or previous Hitman fan, to you that has always been the case. It's not a surprise. You played Blood Money, you knew that all that stuff was in there. But we also saw that a lot of people played that game and never got that moment of critical mass where it sort of clicks on you. That's why I play Hitman. But this time around, it seems to be the case that almost everyone understands what a Hitman level is now.
There we have it. That's all we have on Chapter 4. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the rest of the series.